it is.
Okay, so right in here, the intro shot. What is this? Can anybody comment on what is this thing?
So snowflake.
Snowflake. What does snowflake represent to you?
Purity.
Purity. Okay. What else?
Lightness.
Lightness. Okay. Do you know that do you know that there are millions of snowflakes, but no two snowflakes will have the same pattern?
Yeah, you know.
The snowflake is very symbolic of uniqueness. Okay. Every individual is like a snowflake. Every individual is so unique, right? And that individual here is surrounded by something that says frozen. So somewhere you understand that in this movie there's going to be a character whose uniqueness is frozen, that is yet to be thawed. Okay, that's yet to be uncovered, just like all of us. Okay, so intro shot, you see men, and this is their way of breaking the ice. Okay, literally, how are these men breaking the ice? Force. Okay, so the man's world is about breaking ice with force. Okay, so man thinks that how do I break the ice with somebody? I use force. How do I achieve anything? I use force. Okay, so the very intro shot is reflective of a patriarchal society. Okay, and in a patriarchal society, it's domination and force that is considered as strength. Okay, and hopefully by the end of the movie you're going to understand that it is not force or domination that is going to get you success, but actually kindness, compassion, love and warmth, which will actually break the ice. Okay, and in that patriarchal world you see this young boy, who a young sensitive boy, who in comparison you will judge him to be a weakling in the world of men, and this is what every boy feels. Okay, so I love this, that even though it's a female centric movie, uh, being a man who is a sensitive person, I was able to relate to this character instantly. I was like, oh, I'm also like this boy. When I was a young boy, I struggled thinking that I'm little, soft kind of a boy. I'm not a very macho kind of a boy, and every boy goes through that. Okay, so they're kind of establishing the location just by showing the aurora lights. This is in the northern hemisphere, near the Antarctic. I'm sorry, near the Arctic Circle, because that's where the aurora lights happen, right? So somewhere near the Arctic, maybe one of the Scandinavian countries. Okay, sleeping woman archetype. That is the dormant feminine who is going to be awakened. The dormant feminine is going to be awakened by the active feminine. Okay, by the inner child, the playful child is activating the dormant feminine to come and play, right? So she is in ease with herself initially, like all children. She is in ease with who she is. And interestingly, this is the snowman here. This snowman is symbolic of what they both are creating together when they are actively integrating each other. So within every woman is a dormant feminine aspect who wants to hold back, and also an active feminine aspect who wants to explore, who believes in warmth, love, and also a particular protective feminine aspect who is about caution, who is about taking two steps back, right? When these two aspects of the feminine are in integrity, the creation, what they make, is beautiful. and then something happens, right? So am I audible and visible to everybody?
Yes.
All right. So actually, you're going about your childhood in a very playful manner, and then something happens, right? That guy bullied me in school, or that teacher was harsh to me, or that person told me that I don't look good enough, right? So that moment, right, that wound hits every child while growing up, right? This is the journey of every child. Okay.
It was an accident. Sorry, Anna.
Right, so what did they decide at that very moment? At that very moment she decides that my powers are destructive and I need to hold back my powers. At that moment the decision is made during the core wound of that child, right? And then how does that kind of play out?
Ice?
So meanwhile, here is a boy who's looking for a tribe. Okay, here's a boy who doesn't fit in. He is looking for a tribe. This is the orphan archetype. Okay, it's called the orphan archetype. You're not introduced to his mom or dad. You're just introduced to this character who is seeking a tribe to fit in, and he finds a tribe.
Jewel?
And surely enough, as I said, that self-fulfilling prophecy, okay, is given by this mentor archetype, or it's called the shaman, okay, the shaman or the mentor archetype, kind of is also contributing to the growth, but somewhere also makes a pronouncement, like pronounces the fate of the child, right? Very much like the really well-meaning elders of a family who are who mean well, who actually mean they have your best in heart, but they are limited by their culture and they are limited by their wise, yes, but somewhere the wisdom of an ancient era may not be applicable to the present generation sometimes. So that's the kind of the dichotomy here, that you can see that this old troll is actually meaning well, but very interestingly he is making a self-fulfilling prophecy that uh, the head can be healed but the heart cannot, right? So he says somewhere he indicates that your heart is going to be broken to that young child Anna, as if laying out her life script and predicting what's going to happen right there. All right. So that's the kind of ambivalence we do have with elders sometimes.
It wasn't her heart which moist. I recommend we remove all magic. She'll be a...
Don't you remember I have powers?
It's for the best. You must learn to control it.
Right, so that's a solution. Anything traumatic happens, we are told to kind of hush it up. Sometimes the trauma becomes a family secret, that okay, we'll hush it up, we won't talk about it, let's all forget it, right? Sometimes that is the first response, and that right there is the root of the dysfunction in the family. And you can see how when this event is kept a secret, how that secret slowly freezes the emotion. The secret freezes the free flow of the bonding between the sisters. The secret grows like ice. The secret is crystallizing like ice and creating dysfunction in the family, making them feel estranged as if the warmth has frozen.
Fear. No. You protect her. Learn to limit her contact with people. Keep her powered.
Come on, let's go and play. I know we used to be best buddies.
Right? So this is
But
actually
now we're not.
what's happening here. This is an internal conflicting voices inside of a person. Okay. So inside a single person, there is an aspect of the personality that says, come on, let's go out and play. Let's open up and be vulnerable, meet new people, receive new people, right? And at the same time, there's another aspect of you that has been hurt that says, no, what if I get hurt again? Isn't it? Wait, is my video frozen?
No, it's clear.
It's clear. All right. All right. So that dual voice is also there within the psyche. Okay.
Scared. It's getting stronger.
Getting upset only. You'll be fine, Elsa.
So you can see how the parents actually mean well, but the parents are all for hushing it up. The parents are like, don't feel it, don't reveal it, conceal it. Okay. So it's like, what if a teenage child? So this actually, to a friend of mine, it happened that when he was a teenager, he went and told his parents that, "Mom, Dad, I'm attracted to boys, and I feel sexually attracted to men." And they said, "Okay, you know what? Hush it up. Don't tell this to anyone. We'll keep it a secret, and we'll see if we can get you married to a woman." It actually happened. Okay. I mean, you can imagine how much trauma that would have created for the boy.
Even abuse, I think, hush up if a child is abused.
Yeah, exactly. The hush up happens. The hush up happens even in child abuse. That is true. Like I know of a case where a child goes and tells the parent that this uncle touched me inappropriately, and parents say like, "But we know the uncle, and the uncle is very close, so please don't tell anyone. Hush it up." Right? Imagine that. What happens to the emotions? What happens to the trauma when it's hushed up? It goes inside and gets frozen. Very much like Elsa, very much like in Elsa, right? In Elsa's case, that trauma, basically, she's been made ashamed of who she is. Like her powers have been labeled destructive. Okay, so that label, so Elsa has to fight this internal label and finally embrace who she truly is. And that's how she is going to unfreeze the frozen trauma. Okay.
Welcome to Arendelle. Oh, yes.
All right. So now I'm going to look at. Okay, before I kind of go ahead, I just want to see if all of you are with me, or if what I'm saying is going high level bouncer or something like that. I'm just checking the chat. Okay.
No, absolutely identify with what you're saying.
Okay. Okay. Glad to know.
Chat is frozen because we're too busy listening to you.
All right. So we are going well, no? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you see this kingdom, okay? This kingdom of Arendelle. So if you want to write fiction story, you have to actually set up something called a rich semantic space. A rich semantic space means it can be a galaxy, it can be a forest, it can be a magical kingdom, right? So the moment you say like that, that's where a verbal hypnosis begins. When you're actually talking to a child and you say, once upon a time, 10,000 years ago, in a magical, beautiful land, the mind already goes into a trance. Okay. So this is what this is a way to tap into the subconscious mind. So this is the world of Arendelle. Arendelle is where this entire, story is happening, right? And Elsa gets this, Elsa and Anna both, they get this call to adventure, right? Interestingly, this Prince Hans, he actually represents the animus. Okay, the animus is the male archetype. When a man for the very first time encounters a woman, there is a freeze response that happens. It kind of freezes. Like, now this is just about the time when during puberty, when your hormones are surging, for the very first time when you actually feel the attraction to the opposite gender, you kind of freeze. Your entire system goes into an overdrive and you don't know what's happening. So that kind of an awkward moment happens to both genders, and that awkwardness was beautifully captured in the movie. right? When Anna first meets this Prince Hans, she's never met a man before. She's met men, but she's never been attracted to them. And that moment was captured with all the awkwardness very beautifully, right? And then what's happening in the plot? So this, but interestingly, this Hans, this character, he turns out to be evil later, isn't it? So sometimes when love is blind, that's what we are risking. Okay, uh, the risk of underestimating malice that can be present in the world, right? So evil or malice can be present in people. It can be present in the world. If your love is actually making you go in denial of it, you would perhaps get hurt by a reveal that will happen later. So
Really don't know, but
I
he's
think
back.
yeah, sorry, my internet, just some fluctuation was there. All right. So actually this man, initially when their romance happens between Anna and Hans, right, you think they are soulmates, right? Even the viewer thinks they're soulmates, even Anna thinks they're soulmates, and pretty much that's the assumption that lovers make. They think you are the one for me, and oftentimes that can just be a conclusion. And one of the learnings here for Anna is that not every prince is a knight in shining armor, and not every
wait for it.
Let's wait, yeah.
Okay, Sanjeev. Sanjeev, your screen is literally taking the movie very seriously.
Yeah, seriously. But I have shifted to another Wi-Fi now, so this is going to be stable. You can hear me and see me clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, very clear.
All right, all right. So what was I talking about?
Knight in shining armor or something.
Yeah. I was saying that Anna's learning a very important lesson, that not every prince is a knight in shining armor, and not every common man is a vagabond, right? A common man can be a knight in shining armor, and a prince can be a trickster. Okay, so here the first prince, the first love affair is actually failing because he seems to be a trickster. That's the reveal that's happening later. But the guy whom she judges as, oh, this is such an ordinary guy, the Christopher, he actually ends up, loving her and is willing to risk his life for her. And that's a different kind of romance that happens. Right now, that's, I think, one of the lessons all of us learn as we grow. Okay. So right, so that call to adventure happens. So very interestingly, one of the reasons that a man will get out of his comfort zone will be for a woman. Okay, like if you see, why does Bahubali Jr. climb that huge mountain and go up to the top? It's for a woman. Okay, but with the excuse or the pretext of that, he will actually discover himself, expand his horizons, and actually the personality is going to get a fructification. Similarly, the call to action is often by the opposite gender. You think it is for romance, but actually that's where your quest will begin, and life will actually, in the name of romance, life will actually push you into discovering yourself. And love is a great motivator, sexual attraction is a great motivator into the zone outside your comfort zone, into the world outside of your comfort zone, right? So that is something I observed in this section, right, in this part of the movie, that's where the call to adventure begins, right? And this entire hero's journey happens, right? The hero's journey happens as Anna goes to rescue the frozen sister Elsa. Right, at that moment, there's actually a dialogue that happens between this Prince Hans and Anna, where she says, "I'm going to rescue my sister," and this prince is asking, "Are you sure? Will you go alone? You're a woman." And somewhere, as an audience, you're also biased. Meaning, I was also biased. Even I thought, maybe the prince should go with her. Is she really safe? that's the conditioning, right? The woman cannot go alone, woman cannot go and take that hero's journey. Somewhere Disney is reflecting to us our own bias. When I saw it, I had that bias and I was like, oh, I'm also thinking that the prince should go with the princess, but no, the princess can take her journey by herself, right? That was an interesting moment for me in the movie, right? So, and then Anna goes through a lot of trials and tests and challenges during the escalation. And where does Elsa retreat to? The innermost cave or the abyss, right? So this is an archetypal belly of the whale archetype you will see in many mythologies, many stories, right? In the story of Pinocchio, you'll see Geppetto, he retreated into the belly of a whale to kind of sit and introspect and his own inner shell, right? Now that's the abyss, okay? Like you see in Harry Potter, he goes down into the Chamber of Secrets. So these are all symbolic where a person is reconnecting to a very deep aspect of themselves in a sort of a rumination, and from that space is when they will be able to come out with ideas, right? So it is encouraged for everybody to go into that kind of a deep space within your own mind to rediscover aspects of your personality, to reclaim parts of you that you might have lost out in the childhood. I mean, that's what I got from this, from this part, right? And the ultimate boon, right? So the death and the resurrection archetype happens where Anna nearly dies but is resurrected by an act of true love. So Sleeping Beauty story kind of conditioned us already that the act of true love means the kiss of the prince will awaken the princess, right? Now that also has a metaphorical meaning. It's actually the integration of the animus and the anima, the masculine and the feminine aspects of the personality that reawakens your dormant aspects of personality. But here, how does one reawaken it within oneself is by giving love. Okay, the best way to thaw or melt the frozen heart, okay, with the cold events of life that might have hurt your heart, that might have broken your heart, that might have made you feel people are unkind. Those are the frozen aspects of your heart, and the way to melt it, to unfreeze it, is by acts of love, is by giving love, is that you become receptive of love. And that is something beautifully portrayed in the movie, and I really enjoyed that part, right? And the reveal happens that Elsa is able to unfreeze the entire kingdom, right? Because when your heart is frozen, you see the world around you as frozen, okay? You see like the entire world is frozen, the entire world is made of people who are very cold hearted. But the moment you melt your heart, the moment you unfreeze your heart, you see the entire winter around changes into spring or summer, like metaphorically in the movie, right? So the resurrection of the road back is when they are together, and the atonement is where Elsa is once again contributing to the world around, right? So that's like a like an archetypal plot analysis that I was able to gather while watching this movie. And I would love to hear from you guys what you feel, what you got, and what is your take on this? Did what I say kind of resonate with you, or did you